Hi students, this is your first lesson in Unit G. There's a couple things that you are going to want for this lesson, so you might want to pause now. You're going to grab a colored pencil, doesn't matter which color. I'm going to use light green today, so if you want to use the same color you can, light green. And then you are going to need this blue piece of paper. Blue, it's a blue piece of paper. Mine's not blue because I forgot mine at school. Okay. So mine's on white, but you're going to get this blue table. It's two-sided. It has a table on one side and then some listing on the other. Okay, on this piece of paper, when you get it, you're going to either grab it from Miss Paterka or it'll be in a spot in the room that you can grab it from. You might want to highlight these top parts where it has the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and then highlight 11, 12, 13, then highlight this. So you're not highlighting those big boxes with the multiplication parts in it, just those top parts. That might be helpful to see where we're looking at this. Okay? Alright, so pause right now if you need to find those things, and then we are going to get started here. Alright, so here we go with Unit G. Unit G is going to be called Factoring Quadratics. If you don't know what a quadratic is yet, it's a type of polynomial. Okay. And today we're going to be doing G-1, which is numerical factors, which means number factors. Okay. So first off, we need to know what is a factor. Right? When you think of the word in English like a factor, like if you're factoring in your options, you might be thinking of things that play into your decision. So when we think about math and factoring, we're thinking of numbers that play into another number. So it's actually a number that divides another equally. Okay, so for example, 2 is a factor of 10. Okay, because when we look at that, we can do 10 divided by 2 equals 5. So because we get a whole number here, that means 2 is a factor. It plays into the 10. Okay, so for our first example, we're going to list the factors. Least to greatest. Of 68. Okay, so I'm going to start by just writing out that number 68. One thing that I know is a factor of every number is 1, because we can divide all numbers by 1. So I'm always going to start with 1. And then we could use our calculator and think like 68 divided by 2, see if we get a whole number, 68 divided by 3, divided by 4, and see when we get whole numbers. But that's a lot of things to divide by. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my factor chart. Remember, this is on blue paper. I'm going to take a look at 68. And underneath that 68, you can see all the multiplication we have. We have 1 times 68, 2 times 34, 4 times 17. So all of these things in the box are factors of 68 because we can use multiplication to do that, which means we can also use division. Okay? So I'm going to list these factors of 68 here from least to greatest. I started with 1, so the next one is 2. Now instead of going to 34, I want to go least to greatest. I'm going to do 4, and then I'm going to just U back up. So I do that 17, 34, 68. Next thing that we're going to talk about is the greatest common factor of numerical terms. So the G, or let's just call that greatest common factor, which we call the GCF. Okay, so GCF, or the greatest common factor, greatest means the biggest. Common means it's shared, they both have it. So the biggest shared factor between terms. So we're going to look at more than one term and see what is the biggest factor that they both share, that they both have. Okay? So we're going to start by finding, just example number 2, we're going to find the GCF of 68 and 124. So there's going to be 3 steps here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to list out the factors of those numbers. We'll start with 68. We already did 68, so that makes it easy. We have 1, 2, 4, 17, 34, and 68. So remember, that was on the sheet of paper where we saw 68, and we listed those numbers there. Then we're going to do 124. Now the front of your paper goes 1 through 100. If you flip it over to the back of your paper, you're going to see that 101 all the way up to 200. And they have a little bit smaller print because they have a lot of factors. So 124 here, you can see it's 1 times 124. So I'm going to go in order. 2 times, now it says 2 times 6. I'm not sure if I changed it on yours, but 2 times 6 is definitely not 124. That should be 2 times 61. I'm sorry, 2 times 62. So we know it's 2, 4, and then I kind of swoop back around. So 31, 62, and then back to 124. Okay. Our next step is to see which ones do they have in common. Okay, so as I look, I'm going to just see which ones they both have. So they both have a 1. They both have a 2. They both have a 4. This one has 17. Nope. 34. Nope. 68. Nope. So they have a 1, 2, and a 4 in common. So now I want to look for the GCF, the greatest common factor. So which one of those 3 is the biggest? And that is the 4. So the GCF is 4. Alright, we're going to do one more example, and then that is it for this first lesson. Alright, so number 3. We're going to find the GCF of 28, 56, and 84. So we're going to start by listing out those factors. So 28, 56, and 84. I know for sure they all have a 1, and then they would also have themselves. So if we don't want to list it least to greatest, you don't have to, but it's going to be helpful too, so that way it's easier to compare. So I'm going to flip my blue sheet back over. I'm going to start with 28. Okay, I'll zoom in here so you can see. So 28 has 1 in 28. 2, and 14, and 4, and 7. So I have 1, 2, 4, 7, 14, 28. So 1, 2, 4, 7, 14, and 28. And I'm just copying that straight from my sheet. Then I'm going to look at 56. So here's 56. This one has more. I have 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, 14, 28, 56. It can be in either column. I'm going to just kind of make a U with these ones. So 1, 2, 4, 56, 7, 8, 8, and then I don't remember, 56, 8, 14, 28, 56. So 14, 28, 56. Alright, then I'm going to do 84. So here's my 80s, 81, 2, 3, 84. I have 1, 84, 2, 42, 3, 28, 4, 21, 6, 14, 7, 12. So I'm going to use that, I'm just going to keep that right there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, and then it goes 12, 14, 21, 28, 42, and 84. Alright, so my next thing is to see which ones do they have in common. And for the ones in common, I'm just going to shade them in. I don't really need to list them necessarily, but I will probably. Alright, so they all have a 1. All factors always have a 1. So if they have nothing else in common, the greatest common factor will be a 1. But this one they do. They have 2, 2, 2. So they all have a 2. Okay, 4, 4, 4. Yep, so they all have a 4. 7, 7, 7. Yep, they all have a 7. Do they all have a 14? Yep. And do they all have a 28? Yep, they do. So I'm going to list those out real quick. They have 1, 2, 4, 7, 14, and a 28. So the GCF is 28. So that is the biggest number. Okay, so you do have a quick check down. So you should be able to find that now that you watched your video, and you should be good to go.